answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
We are the Mad Men of Masculinity.
Your home for healthy masculinity. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
Good day, Mad Men Mafia.
I am Kirk M. Samuels.
And I am Jason B. Kendrick.
And we are the Mad Men of Masculinity.
That's right. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
Oh, yeah, for you today. It's for somebody today. I don't know. Maybe
Well,
somebody today. No.
We had Danielle on last week talking about what women want in dating. And so I figured, well, maybe we should talk about some of the other issues in the world today about why it's so hard to have relationships. And, one of those issues is, we need women to be women so men can be men.
Man, I didn't even brush my hair today. I ain't comb my hair. I don't know if you could tell on the camera. And that's just kind of how it is today, man. One of the things she actually said, and I'm paraphrasing. So, if you go back and listen to the conversation, it might word a little bit different. But ultimately, one of the things she said was something along the lines of the dynamic between men being able to be masculine in the same space and women being able to be feminine in the same space. And the way she worded that thing, I think it was somewhere around. The conversation was about what women want. So I'm imagining she probably said something about, or something along the lines of the women wanting masculine men so that they can be feminine, feminine women, or they can express their femininity in a safe place. And so the two kind of go hand in hand, really. And I don't know. And it's so funny. The more I thought about this a little bit today, the more I thought, man, I might end up kind of doing a little loop-de-loop and changing, not necessarily changing, but by the end of this conversation, man, I might come out a different direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that there's so many issues, and we talk about so many of these different issues. A lot of them are man-centric. We talk about how men need to be more masculine and not be nice guys and not follow a lot of the feminist narrative, not follow a lot of this, feminization of men, because it just seems like, and in my own personal experience, it just seems like men are they're too much in their feminine nature, and then women are too much in their masculine nature, and we're out of our natural energies or out of our natural inclinations. And so we struggle with that natural balance of masculine and feminine. And one of the things that we're really gotten away from is like ladies in their kind of goddess nature having, they used to be the wisdom keepers and the ones that held on to the memories and the traditions and things like that. And now a lot of ladies are just being men. And then with the advent of, a lot of the divorce and single mother households and stuff, and young men being raised by women, we got a lot of men now. They're much more in their feminine side. They're much more emotionally available, but they've kind of lost that edge of masculinity, that polarity that you really need for the, sexual polarity and for the combined nature of masculine and feminine to really work together the best. And so it's just one of those things that, yes, it's up to men, but also, especially in today's society where there's no real accountability a lot of times for ladies, it's like, okay, ladies, you got to be women, be in your feminine so the man can be in his masculine. Because if you're both in your masculine, then it's just competition.
We always say sometimes we speak two men, sometimes we speak four men, and I don't know where this one will come off today.
Both.
But well, yeah, probably a little bit of both, really. I mean, because I think we have a little bit of, in our culture, a little bit of relationship diverticulitis. Diverticulitis, a little blockage of the bowels. Things can't flow. Things can't flow because there's a blockage, right? And that blockage comes from us being outside of who and what, generally speaking, we're created to be, right? And so, us as men, I know in my case, when I stood on that beach and put a ring on my wife's finger, I said I wanted to be. I promised. I covenanted with God to be her priest, her provider, and her protector. Right. And sometimes that's not a popular place to be, to be any one of those things in a household. But as a man, I got to be willing to maintain my position, um, and to hold true to that. And honestly, at the same time, from her perspective, she's got to be committed to maintaining that space. I don't know about maintaining like being in your place, but I think definitely being in your space. I mean, when she's in her space, then things just kind of flow easier. When I'm in my space, then things just kind of flow easier. And I think, in our case, it flows best when I'm in my masculine and she's in her feminine. But it's easier for me to be in my masculine when she's in her feminine, regardless.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the reasons I want to do this episode because it kind of flows really well with the last episode with having Danielle on and talking about what women want in relationships because there's so much to your point, the diverticulitis in relationships, the energy is not flowing because we're not in our space, we're not in our lane. And how many times have we done the episode on stay in your lane? What is your lane? And be in that lane so that the other person can be in their lane. What is your purpose? What is your specific energy that you need to be in for harmony, for flow, to be your half of the yin yang, as you will, and are you being that? And I think a lot of it, and this may come across, to a lot of ladies as us, or me specifically going against feminism, but I'm just highlighting a lot of the issues that have come from the feminist movement, where instead of women getting more into their goddess, more into their feminine, more into their kind of motherly, nurturing, wisdom keeper nature, a lot of them become men in skirts. They act like men. You want to be CEOs and boss babes, and you want to run that masculine energy, and then you wonder why you can't get a masculine man, a quote unquote alpha man, to come be your partner. Well, you're in his lane. You're both fighting for the same energy versus you being in your lane in your space and him being in his space in his lane, and you coming together in partnership and harmony. There's too much, contest and competition and headbutting nowadays in most relationships. And also there's not a lot of appreciation of the other person because you're not in your space. You're not in your lane. Men, a lot of times are kind of forced out of that provider role and then demonized for it when there's no space for them to be that, when the ladies decided to be that provider role. And then, there's lots of kind of after the fact issues we could talk about. I mean, we could spend days talking about why being in your space, in your lane, is how you create a harmonious and successful relationship. But this is just something we need to highlight, that yes, there was some need for women to gain more power and to get a lot of their rights and whatnot back, which is fine and dandy. But when that got skewed towards being more masculine versus being more feminine, then it's started causing all these issues.
Here's what I don't get. What I don't get is, and this is where a large portion of women are don't even realize they're being tricked.
Mm.
And I call it being tricked by the enemy of who they really want to be. And that is, I mean, at what point did femininity become weakness?
Mm.
And when you talk about like girl power and women power and all that kind of stuff, for that to be skewed and for that to be portrayed as being masculine, well, that implies that being feminine is not powerful. That there's no strength in femininity. When in actuality, man, femininity is like, the 12 D cell batteries in the boombox. I mean, the femininity is like the current in the ocean. I mean, that's the stuff that makes the weather change. I mean, that's the stuff that makes it cloudy or makes it sunny. I mean, there's a lot of power in femininity, but for some reason, the whole idea of power or whatever has become skewed, especially with that modern feminist movement the power has become skewed to it's got to look like you got to be masculine, you got to be boy, and you got to blah blah whatever, and it's like, well, wait a minute, and then you can't get mad when femininity is co-opted, meaning now all of a sudden you got people, in my opinion, and it is what it is. You can agree or disagree, but it becomes skewed where now the big thing is males and female sports kind of thing, and it's like well, there's a vacuum over here, and so now people have seen the opportunity to exploit that vacuum, and it's like, well, wait a minute. I mean, it's fantastic for for femininity to exist. I mean, the world needs that, and so we can't devalue the importance of femininity for the sake of power. I mean, most of what a guy does has something to do with femininity. Most of the guy's motivation is connected to femininity in terms of wanting to get or trying to get or wanting to be and all this other kind of stuff. I mean, so there's tremendous power in that. But the movement that said no, in order for us to be powerful as women, we got to become men. And it's like, wait a minute, you're being tricked. You're being tricked because the implication is that femininity is weakness, and in actuality, femininity in the right hands is extremely powerful.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I entitled this one, women be women so men can be men, because we as men, our whole kind of core purpose in life is to provide for, protect, and, be that other half of the feminine nature. And so when the ladies are co-opting masculinity, which I think is why they think femininity is weakness, because now they think they're a bunch of dudes. And for a guy to be too much in his feminine, that is weakness, because he's not able to shut off his emotions. He's not able to, do what he needs to do in the moment because he's too much in his feels. Well, when you're in your masculine, then you might look at femininity as weakness. But when a woman's in her femininity and her goddess nature, when she is that woman, and she's being the motherly figure, the goddess figure, all those things, she actually makes space for that man to be a man, because now he's naturally going to fill in those gaps and be that harmonious partner with her. But when she's too much in her masculine, then he's like, well, I don't know where to fit. Like, she's got more balls than I do, so what am I supposed to do? Like, where's my place? What is my purpose? And so as guys today, we've tried to follow their example and be more feminine. And then that backfires, because then they're like, oh, well, he's not masculine enough. I want a masculine man. It's like, okay, that's fine. And we keep saying, and we'll keep saying it, you can have a masculine man as soon as you're in your feminine. You got to have that polarity, because if you're too masculine, then you're going to repel the masculine men and attract the feminine men. Then you're not attracted to the feminine men and can't figure out why the masculine men run away from you. Well, it's because that polarity needs to exist. So you got to kind of look in the mirror and take stock of, is the feminist movement really giving me what I want in my own personal life? And if not, what do I need to do about that?
I know what we need to do.
What do we need to do?
We need to take a break.
Hey, let's take that break.
Let's take that break. We'll be right back. Mad Men and Masculinity on KLDC. And I'm going to get my water. I got to stay hydrated.
Yeah, you got to stay hydrated.
I got a physical in the morning, and they're probably going to ask me to leave a sample.
Mm-hmm. You better drink a bunch of water.
Can't be all dried up. And I got to sit there and sip in a cup, sip water until.
That's always funny. Oh, there we go.
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, you ready?
Yep. We're back.
Yes, we're back.
We are back. Mad Men and Masculinity, KLDC, 1220 AM in the Mile High City, and on the interwebs everywhere.
Check us out on Spotify and Apple iTunes and everything else. Danielle, what's up, girl?
All that kind of stuff. What's up, sister? She knew her birthday was the day after she was on the radio, but she didn't even say nothing, dude. Her birthday was the next day, man. And I was like, you ain't even say nothing.
I'm like, oh, I want to come down. I want to come party too, but I couldn't do it.
I mean, man, she ain't even say nothing, man. Happy birthday, girl. I think it was a big birthday, too. Yeah. I ain't going to say which one, but I think it was a big one. Oh, I'm pretty sure, man. I'm pretty sure it's a big one for her. Anyhow, hey, so we're reflecting on the whole idea of, women being women, men being men, and I think where you left off is kind of a key point of, we hear the complaint of women not being able to find masculine men, or where are the real men, and where are the men that do this and that, and the truth is, if you're single and you can't find or you can't attract a masculine man, it probably has less to do with the available of masculine men and more to do with the unavailability of your femininity, because
Mm.
masculine men have a tendency to gravitate towards femininity and femininity. And I think, later on here at some point we'll get into what we consider to be femininity or what we consider to be feminine. I think that's appropriate to
Yeah.
at some point get into, what does that look like, kind of thing. But right now the point is, there's not a vacuum. I know a whole lot of masculine men. I got several masculine male friends who are single and would love to date. Um, it's unfortunately it's hard to find a woman that is comfortable in her femininity, comfortable in being in that feminine space and occupying that and living in that thing. And it's not until you live in that, even that's even after you get together in a relationship, because you can be in a relationship, you can be married and still get out of that space. And when you get out of that space, it throws off the balance and the force. It throws off all that kind of stuff when a woman gets in and starts to be more of the masculine. And a lot of that is her testing her man. I firmly believe that. I firmly believe there's a constant testing going on of finding the space, finding the edge of the riverbank. Um, but when she gets into that space and he backs off and all that kind of stuff and allows that and gets into the feminine, then I think that just that throws everything into disarray. And so us as men, we love to be in that space, but if it's a lot harder to be in that space. And in order for us to step into that space when when she's occupying that, then we got to come off as more, overdoing the masculine to drown out the volume of her masculine. So, I mean, that dynamic has to exist in order for her to see the masculine in her life.
Yeah, I mean, that's like in most things in life, if you want something, and they say give what you want. So if you want to have somebody give you space to be in your feminine, then you got to give him the space to be in his masculine. And so not to demonize, but I mean, a lot of the feminist movement has pushed women towards their masculine, and I get it. If the guy's not there, you got to fill that space and whatnot. But when you're in that space, it's really hard for the man to fill his natural role. And then to Kirk's point, if he wants to be the masculine while you're being masculine, he's got to be dominant. He's got to be more masculine. He's gonna come in harder, stronger, and try to put you down, and then it creates a competition. And what's interesting is when you really kind of break it down, a lot of the things that ladies are missing and wanting in dating and relationships, they would get naturally if they could step back into their feminine. I think the next movement is going to be a lot of women retraining themselves back into their feminine as we as men, because we do this constantly in men's work and men's group. And on this channel, we keep talking to guys like how to be in your masculine, what that looks like, and how not to fall back into that nice guy feminine syndrome. And so I think a lot of ladies are gonna end up retraining themselves and having ladies groups about how to be in your feminine, because all the stuff that I keep hearing them say they want. They want a man to take care of them, provide for them, and do all the things for them, and so they can be feminine and they can surrender into that. Well, to be able to surrender into that, you got to be able to allow him to be that person. But there's tends to be this competition when you're in your masculine and he's in his masculine. Then you're competing for that one space instead of naturally being in your feminine, so he can naturally be in his masculine. So it's about, and to your point, even from before, because they've adopted that masculine trait, they think femininity is weakness, but it's not weakness. I mean, you're the creators of life. You're the creators of the home. Like basically, whatever a man gives you, you multiply. But you got to be in that feminine nature. And I think being in the masculine, I've talked to a lot of ladies over the years lately that have been afraid to be feminine and have kind of forgotten. They're like they're boss babe. They own their business. They run the house. They run the kids, and they've forgotten how to be feminine. They've forgotten how to relax back into that femininity. So that's like probably the next journey for the women out there is to get together and realize that femininity is a strength. And if they're in their feminine, they'll start to receive all those masculine traits from their men that they're wanting.
Yeah. If I were to stretch my imagination, again, I've never been a woman. Not every man can say that. Um,
Right.
but if I had to imagine, I would say it'd be difficult to be feminine in this world, to be a feminine woman in this world. I would imagine to be a challenge because as a woman, you are kind of pushed out into the workspace to go out there and fight and grind. And a lot of moms, if you're a single mom, you gotta make it happen. You don't get a chance to just sit back and let your guard down. You got to pump the gas. You gotta kill the spider. You gotta put the hammer in the wall, change the battery in the car. You got to do all these kinds of things. I was raised by a single mom. I mean, I get it. And even today, I get it, meaning I saw it, or I lived in that household. But even today, I'm sure I don't realize what that burden was like on her. And so I would imagine it'd be difficult. I would imagine it'd be difficult in this society, especially when you have all these outside messages. Women in general there's a subliminal message in our culture to women that you're not enough. And I know that for a fact that our culture tells women day in and day out, you're not enough. Some of that is directly through people. Some of that is just through just the way our culture is. You got to be pretty enough. Your forehead got to be smooth enough. Your booty got to be big enough. I mean, your waist got to be this size. You're this. I mean, all this other kind of stuff. You got to get out there and you got to grind. You got to be a boss baby. You got to all this other kind of stuff. And it's like what that message does is say, okay, you got to chase masculinity, and at the end of the day, I don't think it's what women want is to chase masculinity. I mean, it's freaking tiring. It sucks, bro. I mean, you taking a lot of arrows and a lot of bullets. You come home with a lot of scars, scratches, and wounds when you chase masculinity. And it's a lot of burden. It's a lot of weight. And so I would imagine it'd be difficult for women in this culture. And so the whole idea of a movement of women finding a way to be all the things that you want to be, but still maintain all the things that you want to maintain so you can have the things that you really want. You can't say that you want a masculine man and you still want to outdo him for everything. You still want to compete with him for everything. You still want to boss him or everything, whatever it is. I mean, the two just don't go hand in hand.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's why I wanted, to broach this topic, to talk about it. I mean, I know it's uncomfortable for a lot of people, especially to Kirk's point. It's hard for both sexes, but especially for women because of this narrative of you're not enough, and you need to put being a wife and a mother isn't enough, so you got to put that on the back burner and go chase your career and go make millions of dollars, and then you've been sold a bill of goods. And we see a lot of ladies nowadays who are miserable. They went and chased their career and they put kids, on the back burner. They put family and husband on the back burner. And now they don't have either. And they can't find a man who wants that with them. So it's just like, what do you really want in the long term? And what does that look like? Because yeah, every choice has its repercussions. Every choice, that you make comes with some weights and whatnot. But this idea of femininity being weakness, I mean, even in men nowadays, we can say, okay, femininity is weakness in a guy because he's not being masculine, or he's overly emotional, or he's overly in his, feminine nature and his feelings and whatnot. So he's not able to prioritize and focus on what he needs to do as a man. But when it comes to women being in a feminine nature, that is the strength. And, even to that point, when you look at even in the military, when you get a lot of these alpha male testosterone masculine guys around, a lot of the officers have to use a kind of feminine centric nature to run them because men are programmed. We are programmed in our DNA to want to take care of and listen to the feminine. It's like, what do you need me to do, honey? Because I'm here for you. I'm here for you and the kids. I'm here for you in the home. Our whole purpose is to be the provider for that structure of family and to be the protector of that family unit and that structure. But when you're not being in your role, when you're not holding your space, it's really hard for him to figure out how to hold his space. And all those things that a lot of ladies nowadays, especially the ones that have kind of fallen into that feminist narrative of being masculine, you're not good enough, and you need to do everything without any help. Well, then that leaves no space for the man, and all the things you want that man to do, he's willing to do if you leave space, which means you got to be in your space, got to hold your foundation as a woman and your femininity, and then he will naturally take care of those things because he wants to. That's it. That's our purpose as men, but we have to have space to be able to do that.
Yeah, which means women got to turn down the volume on culture. They got to turn down the volume on society. Your value, especially your feminine value, has absolutely nothing to do with looks in terms of just you got to go get this manufactured and that manufactured and all this other kind of stuff. I mean, they're fleecing women money wise, trying to chase some standard that is not possible. That ain't even human. That ain't even like no. I mean, your forehead is not supposed to be like a windshield of a car. I'm sorry, it's just not. Especially when you're 40, 50 years old. I mean, you're not supposed to be, looking like X, Y, and Z, having perfect hair and, having caterpillars on your eyelashes and all this other kind of stuff. Man, we went to the swimming pool at the gym, getting out of the swimming pool, man, there's a big old eyelash sitting on the side of the swimming pool, man. At first I thought it was a caterpillar or something like that. And then it wasn't moving. And then I was like, oh, okay, that's somebody's eyelash. And it's like, now she's walking around, whoever that is walking around like this, one eyelash, just looking all lopsided and all this other kind of stuff. And it's like, who told you needed that? Like, who told you needed a BBL? I mean, who told you needed to spend all of your money on cosmetics and beauty supplies and all that kind of stuff? Nothing wrong with being pretty. There's nothing wrong with making, walking out the door feeling, wanting to feel good and all that kind of stuff. But who told you needed to be some artificial image of something that is, that's on TV and in the movies? And those people on TV and the movies aren't even like that naturally.
They fake.
They fake. They fake it. Even the Instagram chicks and even adult film stars don't even look like that's not even natural. I mean, none of it's all fake. And so who told you that you had to be in 3 dimensions where somebody is fake to be in 2 dimensions? It's just not realistic.
Yeah. Speaking of not realistic, it's time for us to realistically take a break. We'll be right back. We are the Mad Men of Masculinity, and this is KLDC.
Boom.
Boom shakalaka.
Now we got to figure out a way to.
Now we got to break it down.
Describe what that looks like, what that is.
What that
we can't leave people hanging out there on the lamb. Yeah. Now we got to figure out what that is.
Got to give them the ABCs.
But I'm curious if anybody is listening at this point in the conversation. I'm curious what society, what people think is feminine or not. I mean, I'm curious if people, somebody will put in a comment. What do you think is feminine? Is there a standard? What is the standard?
Yeah, it's been so skewed, and I think we've kind of lost that. So we need to get back into figuring that out again. Maybe go talk to grandma and great grandma and be like, what does that mean to be feminine? What does that mean to be masculine?
So yeah, put in a comment if you're listening right now. What do you think is feminine? I'm curious. That's a good open-ended question. Yeah. Let's try to dig into it.
All right. Yeah, and we're back.
Yeah. Getting into it. We've been talking about women being women, which by definition we're talking about women being feminine, so men can be more easily be masculine. I don't think us being masculine should be dependent upon a woman being feminine. I'm not getting to that point. I don't think you are either. I don't think it's a conditional kind of thing. I think it's just it sure would be easier to be in that space if, X, Y, and Z. And so, like I said, I don't think it's a conditional kind of thing. I don't think it's necessarily a if then, like we can't until, and quite honestly, I would tell any man, if you're in the single dating world, be careful. If she can't be in her feminine, if she can't rest in that, that's a sign, man. That's a warning sign. They'll always have the ebb and the flow of of that in the course of a day or week or month or just throughout the relationship. But if she can't find comfort in femininity, that's a red flag. That's an absolute red flag. So what do we consider femininity? What do you think?
Well,
Being
I think
feminine.
what while you were talking, I was thinking about what most men and majority of men, especially masculine men, want when they come home, and they want that place to be their peace. And what that looks like is a woman in her feminine who's nurturing and catering and loving and caring, who wants to be happy that you're coming home, who wants to be part of your peace, who wants to be part of that home that she's helping to create with you, who wants to be nurturing and caring and feminine, and who wants to be your cheerleader, because you're on the team together. Like, I don't know who you're competing against in the same household. Maybe you can compete with the people next door if you want, but when you're in the same house, you're on the same team. But when you're in your masculine energy, that's competition. When you're in your masculine energy coming home from work and you don't know how to switch that energy, then he comes home in his masculine energy, then it's competition. So for most men, what that looks like, what femininity looks like, is nurturing, caring, um, soft, peaceful, loving. I mean, you want to, I know this will probably get me canceled or whatnot, but like, you want to cook, you want to clean, you want to provide a warm, loving, cozy household with good food for your man and your kids. And these are the things that, when you're in your masculine energy, when you're following the feminist narrative of be the boss babe and go climb the mountains and have the business and the career and all those things, you don't have the energy or the time for. Plus, when you're in that energy, you got to do both. You got to do both those things. Wouldn't it be better? Doesn't it sound better just to be in your feminine and take that lane and that space and do those things so you don't have to do those other things? Just, just
I
thought.
think being able to receive is feminine. I think being
Mm,
able to be a receive. When I say receive, I don't mean take. There's a difference between taking and receiving. When you're receiving, in that you endeavor to fill his cup, and you endeavor to fill his cup such that it overflows. And when it overflows into his saucer, when it overflows, you receive that overflow. You receive that overflow. You receive what he has to deposit in you. And then ideally it becomes a cycle over and over again, where he's he's returning. He's not giving, he's returning what he has received from you, and vice versa. You are filling his cup such that it overflows. You are okay being the fuel in the gas tank so that the horsepower can get us down the road. Um, and even from the, what biology dictates her being the receiver,
mhm.
her being the soft, receptive receiver. If he's not strong, direct, erect, and she's not soft and welcoming and receptive, we can't even procreate. We can't even produce new human beings. We can't even enjoy that part of our connection. And so, the way we're created physically, gives some indication as to what's the feminine and what's the masculine. And so her being able to receive, her being able to be receptive, her being able to be soft, her being able to provide that nest, that safe place, that safe place to return home to, is key to the masculine. So to me, just right on the surface, those kind of things equate femininity.
Yeah, and to dispel some of the feminist narrative, rhetoric, being in your feminine is not weakness. I mean, you look at martial arts. I mean, Bruce Lee said, "Be like water." Water is soft, but it can penetrate rock. Like, being able to receive and flow with. I mean, that's the feminine nature. Masculine nature is to be direct and hard, and pursuant, and be pushing and banging against things, whereas feminine nature is to be more flowy and smooth and soft and receptive. And in some ways nowadays, even submission is the four-letter word in the feminist narrative, because it sounds like, oh, I'm going to be your slave. It's like, no, when you're in your space, when you're in your lane, you submit to him providing for you and protecting you and doing those things that most women don't really want to do anyway, especially when they've had to do it. It's so hard nowadays for ladies to be able to just rest in their femininity and just be able to receive what their masculine man has for them. They got the disgruntled single friend who's in there saying that he ain't doing enough and he's no good or whatnot. And they got all of the marketing saying that they're not looking good enough because they don't have this product or that product or this thing, or they don't look a certain way. But when you can submit to, and even when you look at just even religion and whatnot, submitting by faith to God or to your creator by being who you are. So many of us are trying to be something we're not. So many men are trying to be women nowadays, which isn't working. So many women are trying to be men nowadays, which isn't working. Why don't we trust in how we were created, the dichotomy of masculine and feminine that works together, and stop trying to be the opposite and trying to surrender to our natural nature and be what that is?
Mutual submission looks way different than what society would have us think. And I put it this way. Is it a better deal, or is it easier to submit in the leadership, like I submit to your leadership, or is it more difficult to submit in the sacrifice? And where I'm going with that is, for him to submit and to serve her by leading and providing and protecting and all that kind of stuff, then by default, he said, I'm going to step in front of the bullet for you. I mean, I think that's a pretty good deal. Like, I think that's a pretty good deal. If she's like, okay, this is my man. I give him, the leadership scepter. I give him that position openly, and I'm not ashamed of that. All that kind of stuff. And oh, by the way, I get somebody to jump in front of a bullet for me. I get somebody to open doors for me. And guess what? If you're going for the door, at some point he's going to stop reaching for the door to open it for you. I mean, at some point that's the whole point behind being able to receive, being able to take a step back and allow him to lead you into that place and into that space. But I think it's a great deal to have a good man and to say, you know what, that is my man, and I'm going to be the feminine for his masculine, so that he is empowered, so that he got all the calories that it takes to jump in front of the bullet for me. That he can go out there, he can cut the grass, all the stuff that y'all was talking about. That women love to see men do. Go out there, do stuff, fix stuff, clean stuff, whatever, with all that kind of stuff. I'm gonna make sure he ain't thirsty while he's out there doing it. I want to make sure that he's taken care of. I want to make sure that he has everything he needs, that he's empowered. And so femininity is an empowerment of the masculinity, and the nature of him being empowered opens the door for her to not do any of the stuff she don't want to do. She don't want to pump the gas.
Right.
Quite honestly, she don't want to have to go worry about this. She doesn't have to worry to take out the trash. She does it. I can't even think of the last woman that I met that enjoys pumping gas, enjoys taking out the trash, enjoys going to wash the car, enjoys, doing the hot, sweaty work around the house, that enjoys killing animals that need to be killed in the house. I can't recall a woman enjoying any of those kind of things. Wouldn't it be great if your man was empowered through your femininity to go do all the things you don't want to do? That sounds like a pretty freaking great deal to me.
Yeah, and I mean, when we get back to just even the word surrender and the point of surrender, I mean, think about what that really means. Surrender means to drop the sword, to drop the shield, to relax, to let go of that stress in your shoulders, to stop being who you're not, so that your man can fill that spot, that slot, in which he will do godly. There's so many men that we know who are single and looking for a woman that they can serve, or that they can protect, that they can jump in front of the train and the bullet for, but they're having a hard time finding a woman who can surrender into her femininity long enough for him to do that, and a woman strong enough mentally to stop listening to the feminist narrative and the marketing out there that says that that's wrong somehow, that being feminine and allowing a man to protect and provide for you and do all those things you want a man to do around the house and in your life for you, that frees you up to be the feminine goddess that you truly are, that want to be the one who actually creates all the things that he needs, because we need each other. So he needs you. I need you as a man to be in your feminine nature to help fill me up so I can do all the things that you need me to do for you. It's reciprocal. But when we're in the same energy, then it's competitive. And so we're not saying that there's anything wrong with what you choose and what you decide. We just want you to look at what are you choosing and how's that working for you. just like any man that we have a conversation with, it's like, okay, what are your results? Looking at results may not be pleasant. Results often harsh, always fair. You look at your results and say, is this giving me what I want? And we're just saying, you need to do that, ladies. Get in the groups and go, maybe being masculine as a woman isn't getting me what I want. So maybe I need to retrain myself with me and my ladies to be feminine again so that I can get those men that I want to treat me the way I want. And that surrender means to relax into your natural nature. It's not giving up. It's not being a slave. It's just surrendering into who you really are.
And this has nothing to do with achievement. This has nothing to do with, where you work or your profession or your ability to go out there and be successful and go out there and make money. And yeah, if
Most of
we're
the
doing the
successful
same job,
women we know do that. They're feminine.
absolutely. And if we're making the same, if we're doing the same job, I firmly believe we should be getting the same paycheck. I'm totally okay with that. Um, and so it has nothing to do with capping your possibility, your ability to contribute to society, your ability to be to provide some degree to your household and all that kind of stuff. But when you come home from all of that, when you walk in the door, when we walk in the door, okay, you ain't at work no more. You ain't doing all that kind of stuff. And matter of fact, I firmly believe that you would rather be home and not have to do all that. More often than not, you'll find the boss babes want a man that will plan dates, that will, when you meet in the dating world, I want a man that'll make a plan, that'll, kind of just let me know what we're doing because I'm tired of making all the choices and all the decisions
Mhm.
that I got to make during the day. You hear that over and over and over again. So I firmly believe that you're perfectly okay not making all the decisions, not making all the plans and all the choices. As a matter of fact, even more so, I believe that you want a man in your life to help set direction and help chart a course. And here's what we're going to do. And here's what you need to wear. I got all the details planned out. Pack a bag, put this in there, put that in there, put that in there, and I got everything else. I firmly believe you want that. And so, in order to get those kinds of things, you got to be willing to be those kinds of things in order to have those kinds of things.
Yeah, and speaking of what we need and what we're going to get you, we're going to take a break. It's our last break. We are the Mad Men. This is KLDC. We'll be right back.
Man, I can't tell you how many times I've heard women, particularly single women, even married
Oh,
women,
yeah.
say, "Man, I would love if
So
my man
tired.
would just, I would love if my man would just X, Y, and Z. Just tell me what we doing. Just tell me what we
Yeah.
doing, so I don't have to
They
think.
all sound like Chris Rock right now. It's like, tired, tired, tired.
I just don't want to have
Tired
to
of
think."
being a man.
We got kind of a running joke in our house of like, babe, I don't want you thinking. Not, I mean, my wife she's hella smart. She's hella smart. She got more degrees than I do.
Mhm.
And yeah, her brain just works like that. But at the same time, we're clear that she would rather just be able to not have to think in order to make stuff happen, to figure stuff out and all that kind of stuff. And so when she gets all wrapped up in details, I'm like, babe, I got this. You ain't
That's
got
a
to
good
think. You
point.
just flow.
We got to talk about that last segment. Like,
Yeah.
men's job is to point the direction, and the ladies' job is to fill that direction. Like, okay, we're gonna go do this, and then they
Mm,
fill in all those details, and I'll make it all pretty
mhm.
and nice, and all the things they want to do instead of having to
Yep.
decide what we're doing.
All right, we'll put that on the air.
All
We'll
right.
come back with that. We're back.
Yes, we are.
We're back. We took a little
Fourth
minute, man.
quarter,
I'm
baby.
telling you, if you don't watch like the YouTube and the Facebook versions of us recording this, man, you miss a lot of good stuff
Mhm.
when we take our breaks for the radio edit, man. We getting some good stuff. And I was just talking about how, at least in our household, it's kind of a running joke somewhat of, like,
Somewhat.
babe, you don't have to think. Like, when my wife thinks in terms of having to figure stuff out and having to, make whatever happen and all that kind of stuff, she's not in her happiest. She can do it. She's hella smart. But at the same time, it's like, I got this. If I'm in the middle of doing something, and she's like, what can I do? I say SSLP, sit
Mhm.
still and look pretty. That's your job right now. I got this whole thing. And she loves that. I mean, it works for us. She loves that. And
Mhm.
again, it has nothing to do with capability, it has nothing to do with ability. It just has to do with I got this. And she loves the fact that, that her man got this, and I love the fact that she lets me get that. Even even if sometimes I'm drained, I'm tired or whatever. But I tell you what, I can't tell you how many times I'm up here working in my office and the door opens up and there's a plate.
Mm.
There's a plate of food or some drink or something like that. I mean, she be making that happen. So, that's that trait right there of the masculine being the make it happen, the think, the processing, and all that kind of stuff. We're getting into the gears, and gears were invented by men, right? I mean, so were complex engines. Engines were invented by men. I mean, you name it. I mean, all that kind of stuff. Tools were invented by men. I mean, because all those details and all that kind of stuff is kind of where we thrive. Women makes and another thing we got, I might be the house or represent the house. She represents the home. She makes it the home in terms of, all the stuff in between the walls. But the walls themselves and all that, I got all that. You SSLP, you sit still and look pretty.
Yeah, and that's all we're saying with this whole this is not anti-woman, it's not anti-men, it's not anti-anything.
Mhm.
This is pro making relationships
It's
work and pro
it's
getting you
pro
what you
us.
want. Yeah, it's pro
Hmm.
us. And so when we say, the men are the structure, that's what we do. We build the structure and you fill it in as a feminine woman. So we may decide we're going this place or that place, but you bring your energy, you bring your beauty, you bring your nurturing, your caring, you bring all that sensuality, you bring all those things. Like you see a guy who can survive, like most single guys, you go in their house and most girls are just disgusted by what little he has or how dirty it is or what the situation of his apartment is. But men don't think like that. We have the structure. Women bring the beauty. And that's all we're asking you to do is bring that beauty, but make that your lane and your space and your focus. Don't think that you got to do both things. Don't be the structure and the beauty. Let your man be the structure. Let him be the leader and create that space for you to do what you naturally do and then surrender to that. Allow him to surrender in his masculinity to be that leader and to give him that space to do that. So many men nowadays, and even Danielle last week touched on this, so many men nowadays are so beat down and don't know what to do because we're the enemy of everything. We're the enemy of women, we're the enemy of men, we're the enemy of, this gender or that gender or this movement or that movement. Like we nothing we can do is right. And so many men are kind of giving up because they don't feel they have a space. They don't feel they have a lane. They don't feel they have a place to be themselves because a lot of times you ladies are so good at adaptability, you're being better men than a lot of the men around you, and then you wonder why you can't find a man. Well, most men don't want a man; they want a woman. So if
Mm.
you can give us some space to be that man, we'll jump right in. Most men are dying to jump in and fill that space, but we just need that space. So open the door a little bit, let us in and surrender. Let us open that door. Let us take
Mm.
care of those things so you don't have to.
I don't know why, but right now it's just settled in my spirit in this conversation. The whole idea of Beauty and the Beast.
Mm,
This guy was a beast. He was an animal because he was under a curse. And Belle came into the picture, and she kind of represented everything that made his cat. He had a castle. I mean, he had a castle with talking, clocks and candelabras and all this other kind of stuff, tea
mhm.
kettles or teapots or whatever. He had all the things, and all those, but she brought the. I mean, her name was Belle, right? I mean, I think if I'm not mixing up my
Yep.
Disney princesses, but she came in and then at the same time, the antagonist in the story was the false artificial masculinity of Gaston, right? I mean, he represented all the things that wanted to kill the beast and wanted to. I mean, it was all about killing the beast, killing the beast, killing the beast. But ultimately, and at the same time, and this beast saw himself getting older. You saw the rose petals that represented the time he had left just kind of falling off, and finally, when Belle came into the picture, and when she just brought life into his world, then ultimately that curse that was stuck on him fell away, I mean, and it turns out he wasn't a beast after all. He was a prince, right?
Mhm.
And so when that femininity comes into the picture, when she comes into the castle, all the stuff that he has in the castle, all of the ways that he may present, when you get the right feminine and the right masculine together, man, now you got a prince and a princess, man, and all that artificial masculinity, even all the artificial things in his household that were alive but not living, all those things came to life. And it turns out there were real people behind all that.
Mhm.
That was pretty
Yeah, it's
deep.
interesting. Yeah, that's pretty deep. I like it because that actually kind of goes a lot into what women like. You can look into like the romance novels and women's fantasies, things like that. They want to tame the beast, but to be able to tame the beast, you have to allow for the beast. And so many women are beating the men down before they allow for the beast. You're not allowing for the masculinity. You're not allowing for the men to be masculine and be men. And once that man is a man and you're in your feminine, you will naturally tame the beast. It's not about beating him down. It's not about telling him how to be or whatnot. He's naturally going to tame himself because he wants to take care of you. He wants you to be his feminine. He wants you to be his princess and his queen. He wants to do those things. And so the way you tame the beast is by allowing him to give him the space to be the masculine man so that he can fulfill his purpose as a man by being the leader and provider and protector. And when you surrender into your feminine, then you naturally tame that beast because he's going to be a beast out in the world, taming dragons and doing whatever he has to do to take care of you. But when he comes home, he's going to be soft and loving and nurturing and caring because that's what he wants at home. He doesn't want to fight battles at home. And I don't know where this idea of competition and y'all being the boss baby in the house and having to run stuff when you don't, if you're honest with yourself, like Kirk said, most of you don't want to run stuff at the house. You want to make the house pretty. You want to be in your feminine nature and go with the flow, but when you're in your masculine, then it's a competition, and nobody wants to compete at home. We're all busy. We're all working hard. We're all out there killing dragons and bringing home the bacon and all that stuff. So we want to come home and relax. We want to come home and chill. We want to come home and feel peace. So be that queen, that goddess, that natural feminine that you are, and he will be the natural masculine he is, and then you will naturally tame that beast.
And the underlying premise that exists in this conversation is we're talking about good men. There
Mm.
are not good men out there. There are men that doesn't matter how feminine you are, they're still gonna, they don't want to lead, they want to dominate. They're so wounded and bruised and hurt that hurt people. And so and those men should not be tolerated in relationships. And I would advise anyone, I would advise a daughter of mine, if you are in a relationship with not a good man, maybe you shouldn't be. And, if you decided to marry a man, you got to figure some stuff out. But if you're out there dating and you're in the dating world and you are in your feminine and his masculine, his safe, protective, providing masculine doesn't amplify as you're in your feminine, he's not the right man. And you need to move on until you find one. Guarantee there's plenty out here. But so we're talking a good man would respond in all these kind of ways. The same way we imply or infer that a good woman would respond to a man being in his masculine, a safe man being in his masculine. And to the guys, I would say, hey, man, if you're in your masculine and you're living that and you're safe and you're a good man, and she does not respond in her feminine, then she's not the right woman and you need to move on because there's a lot of good women out here that would love to find a good man like that and, can keep a good man. A whole lot of women can get a man, but not a lot of women can keep a man, and it's because these women haven't been able to figure out that dynamic. They're trying to be everything that their girlfriends and society and modern feminism tells them. At the same time, they're not happy because they don't have everything they want as a result of that.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a movement, not necessarily away from feminism, but a movement towards natural femininity, so that the ladies can get what they truly want and get the things. Because, like to your point earlier, the feminist movement and Hollywood and big business are all telling you you're not good the way you are. They're all telling you you're not enough the way you are. They're all telling you need all these different things. Where the right man, a good man who comes in there and you're in your feminine, he's going to tell you you're beautiful just the way you are. Let me take care of my job so you can take care of your job. Let me
Mhm.
fulfill my role and hold that space so you can fulfill your role and hold that space so we can naturally be the harmonious counterpart to each other. But so much of what we are told on both sides for men and women is don't be yourself. And I'm a big proponent because that's something that I took in as a child about don't be yourself. Whoever you are, I don't like that. Be something be something I can understand. And so most of my adult life is getting to that point of I'm good just the way I am and amplifying my good traits and things I like. And so for you ladies, for you men out there, same goes for you. You're good just the way you are. You're perfect just the way you are. Highlight your strengths. Don't worry about your weaknesses. Somebody else has got that for you. But we do better when we're naturally in our own space. We do better as men in our masculinity. Ladies, you do better in your femininity. All we're saying is let's hold that lane. Let's get in our space.
Mhm. Yeah. And most of, and if you notice, this conversation ain't got nothing to do with going and getting all these treatments to look hot, to look,
Oh, thank you.
sexy, to look
Natural is
young, and
better.
all this other kind of stuff. Quite honestly, if you 50 years old, you should look like a 50-year-old. I mean, that doesn't mean you can't look pretty. I think you're freaking beautiful, at that age. And but it's not about chasing what the world says is the standard for beauty. Most men, most real men, when you talk to guys, don't find attractive the stuff that society tells you
Mm.
you need to get and do and be in order to be attractive. And so, stop listening to all of that and start listening to, start listening to the source. Start listening to, to the fellas, because it doesn't have to do with the surface. It's a beauty is skin deep, but ugly goes all the way to the bone. Right.
Mm.
So, it's what's beneath the surface that dictates who you are.
Yeah, if you want to know the truth, how many of you ladies have told us personally, and how many times we hear it? I don't know why every time I go to the store when I got my hair up in a ponytail and I'm wearing sweats and I don't got no makeup on, I keep getting hit on. That should tell you something. That should tell you that men are looking at you not just for the outer, but for the inner. And when they see you out in public without all the stuff, then you feel safer. You feel more natural. And so that's all we're saying. Just be you,
Yeah.
boo, so that we can be us, and then we'll be much happier in the long
Hmm.
run. And that is our time for today. We are the Mad Men. Please make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube. You check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And until next time, we are out.
Wow.